Great article today in the New York Times about who launched this campaign to defund Obamacare, as they call it. Well, it turns out it's not, of course, something that just sprung up naturally, organically. If you're watching the news, it seems like, well, I don't know, Ted Cruz got really excited and he decided to do that filibuster, which, by the way, is not a filibuster. And then the House Republicans, they voted that way. And well, look, it just kind of popped up. No. There was a meeting among very conservative groups right after President Obama's last re-election. This is funny because, of course, President Obama and Joe Biden said that after his re-election, the fever would break and the Republicans would be more likely to work with him. It appears, of course, the exact opposite is what happened. Well, it turns out that in that meeting, led by former Attorney General Edwin Meese, they put together a document that, quote, was a blueprint to defunding Obamacare. And so they did that immediately after Obama's re-election. Well, why did they do that? Well, the New York Times explains. If the law took full effect as planned, many conservatives feared it would be nearly impossible to repeal even if a Republican president were elected in 2016. So think about that. The guys who say, oh, the American people are with us and they don't like Obamacare, et cetera, et cetera. No. They got together and they said, my God, we got to stop it before it goes into effect. If it goes into effect, everybody will realize how much they like it and we'll never be able to repeal it. No matter how many elections we win, they won't let us repeal it, just like Social Security and Medicare, because the American people love those programs by overwhelming majorities. And then that takes money from a little bit from the super rich and gives it to regular average Americans. And by the way, it doesn't even do that in the case of Social Security. It just allows you to contribute to Social Security so that you get the money back. Basically, these rich guys are getting together, literally in a room together and saying, yeah, they did all put into that fund, but wouldn't it be great if we could take some of that money? So here they have another program that they'd love to raid, prevent, stop under all circumstances. God forbid we should do anything positive for the American people. So Michael A. Needham, or Heritage Action for America, it's an offshoot of the Heritage Foundation, says, we felt very strongly at the start of this year that the House needed to use the power of the purse. At least at Heritage Action, we felt very strongly from the start that this was a fight that we were going to pick. So all the way back then, they decided we're going to pick this fight and we're going to pick it based on these continuing resolutions, basically threaten to shut down the government if we don't get our way, even though we've lost on this issue already legislatively. So they explained that a defunding toolkit was created in early September of that year, including talking points for the question, what happens when you shut down the government and you're blamed for it? So in other words, they've been planning this all along. And it's a lot of good planning to get to here where they go, oh, golly gee, look at what happened out of nowhere. I'm going to tell you who's behind this in a second. From the picture you see here, you might be able to tell who's behind it already, right? Of course, it's the Koch Brothers, but I'm going to explain to you how it's the Koch Brothers. Okay. Now, speaking of the Koch Brothers, they have a group called Americans for Prosperity, and they've got 100 is hyperbole, but literally dozens of groups which they have funded. It's funny, they sometimes take different strategies how to get to their goal. Tim Phillips is the president for Americans for Prosperity, and he's got a different plan. He wants to spend, and he is spending tens of millions of dollars, according to him, on a multi-front effort that includes working to prevent states from expanding the Medicaid under the law. So they've got 800 different ways that they're attacking the law. Defunding the government is just one of those ways. Tim Phillips then hilariously says that it's David versus Goliath. You understand that? David being these multi-billionaires and Goliath what? Being the American people? No. I don't know if you got the memo. You're Goliath. We're basically just trying to say, hey, can we get health care to most people in America so they don't die in the streets? Goliath. We're Goliath? That's hilarious. So who was in that room when they were making these plans? Tea Party Patriots, Americans for Prosperity, there you go, Freedom Works, Club for Growth, Generation Opportunity, that's a hilarious group meant to reach younger voters. They've reached approximately 3 people who all work at Generation Opportunity. Same goes for Young Americans for Liberty, basically Young Americans for people looking to get rich off the Koch brothers. And then there's, of course, Heritage Action, which I mentioned. Now, other offshoots of these groups that are affiliated with this movement, Center to Protect Patient Rights, that's a group that got over $100 million. And they now are working on all these different issues that have nothing to do with this law, Affordable Care Act, let alone protecting patient rights. They have no interest in that. American Commitment is another group, 60 Plus Association, that's trying to counter AARP, pretending that they're in favor of senior citizens as they try to cut their Social Security and Medicare. And it is an interesting one. And the Traditional Values Coalition, because the Christian thing to do would be to make sure that people do not get health care and die accordingly. All right, great. So that's a lot of different groups. But it turns out that when you trace it all back, that most of the money comes largely from the Freedom Partners Chamber of Commerce. They took $200 million in 2012 and distributed to all these different groups so that they could defeat Obamacare. And by the way, other things that President Obama proposes, whether it's, for example, cleaning up the environment. Koch Industries is heavily in the energy industry. They have no interest in cleaning up the environment. That costs them money. Oh, the unions and the minimum wage, they despise those things. So you fund against that as well. I mean, when people used to talk about smoke-filled rooms and conspiracies, I say, that's ridiculous. That's not how things work. And there's a lot of truth in that. Usually, conspiracy is out in the open. Our system is now so ridiculous that we've legalized bribery. You could just give a politician money for his campaign. You can do an independent expenditure, and then they vote the way you want, right? It's out in the open. But sometimes it turns out there are smoke-filled rooms where the Koch brothers have decided how they're going to spend their $200 million. It's not just the Koch brothers, to be fair. There's also a business league that's part of this that has more than 200 members, all of whom pay at least $100,000 in dues. Now, all those incredibly rich businesses and individuals, I mean, they got to pay at least $100,000 in dues. Do you think they're looking out for the regular folks who are looking to get health insurance and get covered? Or are they looking out for the incredibly rich who want to make more money off of us? I can't quite tell. And then these guys have not only attacked President Obama and the Democrats, they've also now attacked Republicans. In fact, there's 100 districts that they're now running some critical internet advertisements against Republican lawmakers. And then the group that I referred to earlier, Generation Opportunity, there's a guy named Evan Feinberg that's running it. He's a former Capitol Hill aide. And he says about their efforts, because what they're doing is they're getting young people to go burn their Obamacare card or some insanity like that. As if there was like a really popular movement in college campuses, like there was during Vietnam. You know why there was? They didn't want to go to Vietnam to die. It's like, in this case, there'd be a popular movement to die. I don't want insurance, cheap, available insurance, no, burn the card. There's no such movement. It's funded by the Koch brothers, who are, in the ballpark of 70 years old. You think they care about kids on college campuses? They're looking out for them? No, they hire these lackeys like Evan Feinberg, who then say, a lot of folks have asked us, are we trying to sabotage the law? No, our goal is to educate and empower young people. That's a good one, Evan. And as they're doing all of this, it's not just the money they spend in ads, not just all these different groups that they're funding. It's also this incredible funding movement to create a false grassroots. Or at the very, if you're going to be as generous as possible to them, to help the grassroots grow. So like if you're a progressive and, for example, you want to say hold the bankers accountable, well, over 90% of Americans agree with you, but you can't really get a movement going because you don't have any money, right? It takes money to put together a movement. So what do I mean by that? Heritage Action has trained 6,000 people that it calls sentinels, which seems, just vaguely dangerous. 6,000 sentinels around the country. We can call them whatever you like. It's fine. And they've sent them to open meetings and other events to confront their elected representatives. So those guys who at the town hall events, you think like, oh man, people are really mad at Obamacare. Boy, no. They got trained by the guys who get paid by the Koch brothers to go send them to that event. That's how money wins. That's how it looks like there's a groundswell. And then the media goes, oh my God, look at that town hall event. Oh my God, look at that demonstration that was put together. And it looks like people are really against Obamacare. And that's what all the think tanks are saying on the right side. And that's what all the Republican politicians say. Well, I guess people really don't want health insurance. They're burning their Obamacare cards, on college campuses. It must be true. No, there's a group of incredibly rich people and corporations who are looking to destroy the Affordable Care Act so we can't get the tiny bit of health insurance that we need. Now, to me, the law needs to be 1,000 times more progressive. We need to have a public option in it. I think it's a mandate that we give our money to the insurance companies. And by the way, the one group that is not participating in all of this is the insurance companies. They actually like the law. They've actually spent a lot of money advertising in favor of the law because it guarantees them customers. So that's rich on rich crime, and that's fascinating to see how it plays out. But here's $200 million making sure that we don't get health care. Finally, Mike Needham, CEO of Heritage Action, says, most ironically, it really was a groundswell that changed Washington from the outside in. Yeah, outside of Washington, all the way in New York, where these guys get together, make the decisions, and then create this fake grassroots movement to make sure they win and we lose.